Welcome to
Bean Stuff.
Today is the third episode that we're doing on cupping. We're kind of digging deeper and deeper in each episode. And today we are going to look at the lexicon.
The lexicon. And
not a leprechaun, though.
No, not a leprechaun. And also, it goes hand in hand with the coffee taster's wheel, which they've just brought out a couple of years ago now.
Yeah, and I know that we had done another episode earlier in the year that was on tasting coffee and how to do that. This is going to cover probably some of what that covered as well, but it's going to go much, much deeper into the language and the descriptions of flavor. So first of all, what the heck is the lexicon?
You want to start with the lexicon? I was going to start. Well, the lexicon, it's a dictionary. You need a dictionary to describe and to give meaning to words. Because when we say one thing, or what I understand it means, you'll understand it means something completely different particularly if you're from a different country, use a different language, have different culture. It's going to be very, very different.
Well, and you wrote a couple examples of how that might be misconstrued, didn't you?
I did. I was quite excited by this. I thought about it.
Read off what you had as your examples there.
Do you understand this, Reed? Do you understand this?
Yeah, bring it on.
If I said to you, I went to the dairy and got some Jaffa lollies and lemonade to put in the chili bin, and Bob's your uncle.
You know what? I do know what you're saying.
Now, why do you know what I'm saying?
Because I've lived in New Zealand where that is a normal thing, or all those words make sense.
That's right. So a lot of people, a whole population understand that, but a whole population, perhaps even more people, don't understand it.
Right.
But they would understand it if I said this to them.
Okay.
I went to the 7-Eleven and got some chocolate orange candy and Sprite to put in the cooler, and well, there you have it.
Yeah, so you have almost the exact same thing being said, but the understanding is completely different depending on where you're from.
Exactly.
So, and kind of with the lexicon, you need a common language to be shared between everyone so that everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, quite typically when we're cupping. In fact, I had it just this yesterday, and people will often say, and I'm happy for them to say it, but they'll say, this coffee tastes like coffee. And I think, well, that's good. I'd rather it taste like coffee than diesel or something else, but
right.
But what does that mean? I don't think they've able to have taken the time to actually say what I mean by coffee. Because coffee has so many flavors. You're describing this general term coffee, but coffee is so varied. What are you talking about?
And I think that's the same with a lot of things. Like, you might say, this tastes like wine, or this tastes like bread, or anything you have. And I think it's that, what we're talking about now is taking it to that next step and then saying, what does bread taste like? Break it down, and then also how do we communicate that with each other so that when I say it tastes like something, you can sit there and say, okay, I know what he's saying, and now I understand that. And that's where that lexicon comes in, that common dictionary for us all to use.
It would be better to say, rather than say coffee tastes like coffee,
right.
I think it'd be better to say something like, it tastes like raspberries, it tastes like chocolate, it tastes like flowers.
Right.
And then you're homing down, you're getting more specific. So I start saying, I know what raspberries taste like.
Right.
But guess what? You've still got a problem, because some people in the world may have never tasted a raspberry.
Or a Jaffa.
Or a Jaffa. What are you talking about?
And I think that's a huge thing. And there's some stuff in the lexicon that really, I think, is really cool for that exact, dilemma that you run into.
Yes.
I wanted to define lexicon because I didn't know the definition, or the dictionary definition off the top of my head, but I have it written down, so I'm going to cheat and read that.
Good.
But it's a noun, and it's the vocabulary of a person, language, or branch of knowledge. And then it has in parentheses or quotations the size of the English lexicon. But it's something that we can use as almost as definitions for what we're tasting, specifically when we're talking about coffee, that is. But have we had this forever?
We have not had the lexicon or the coffee taster's wheel forever, no.
Yeah.
And I probably should say aside, when we get into the tasting this, we're really talking about black, unflavored coffee.
Right. We're not talking about white coffee. We're not talking about eating a raw bean or
We're not
the
putting
cherry
hazelnut flavor in there. We're not putting sugar or half and half. We have just got black unflavored coffee.
Well, and like we had talked about in the previous episode, or the last episode, we talked about how that ratio works and how that's defined, and we're talking about using that ratio. So if you haven't listened to the episode just before this, that one kind of breaks that down. Because there is a specific ratio of water to coffee, but you were correct. Exactly. We're not doing anything but just coffee and water.
And that's usually the first amazement of people, like when we're cupping and we taste two different coffees, black, unflavored coffee.
Right.
And they go, wow, I've never tasted that before. What they're actually saying is I've never thought to taste the coffee before.
Well, that as well. But I would say this. I feel like I had a reverse experience of that.
Oh, yes.
Because I grew up with you making coffee and that experience. And it was a good experience.
Good.
And then I went to my first real job and they had coffee. They said, we've got coffee here. If you ever want it, go ahead and grab it. And I thought, man, this is the coolest thing
Is it
ever.
free?
This is free.
Oh, it's beautiful.
They said, just come and grab it. And I said, oh my goodness.
What happened?
So got to my desk, sat down, and I went over to then go get a free coffee. I thought, man, I can just come to work, have a coffee.
Oh,
and it tasted like fermented cherries or plums, or just fermented to the point where you would never want to put it in your mouth.
Oh, dear.
But I think that's where a lot of people come from. So it's like, I can see how a lot of people think of coffee as having the coffee flavor.
Yeah, actually, coffee. The history of coffee, like compared to history of wine has a long history of tastings of coffee, and they have a lexicon. They have a wine.
You were talking
wheel.
about wine. You said coffee there.
Did I say sorry?
Yeah.
They have a wine wheel,
right?
And they've used it for a long time. Coffee's the new boy on the block, basically,
right?
And therefore, people don't realize actually coffee also has these tastes, and I'm sort of so used to this other thing that you just described there.
Yeah.
I think that's coffee. And I usually say to them, if I tasted the coffee you have at work, I probably wouldn't drink coffee.
And I think that's a large reason. I think we're getting off in the weeds a bit, but I think that is a large reason. People think, oh man, coffee cupping. Ooh, maybe I won't want to do it. It's like, you know what? When you taste it, you will have kind of that aha moment, and you start to be able to explore some of these flavors and things we'll talk about.
I was saying a couple of cupping on Friday that if you just go when you taste it, and then you go to the other side and taste the other coffee, and you go, whoa, that's made my day.
Yeah, because you're thinking about it.
You're thinking about it, and you realize this is nice, and you honestly haven't put any flavors in this. No, it came from the seed.
Yeah. So, who developed the lexicon, Dad?
Well, as I say, there's many others in the past.
Because wasn't there one? There was one before the one we have now.
There was. I should just preface that the coffee has. Wine has one. Beer has a wheel. Honey has a wheel. Wow. Cheese has a wheel. They've got these things out
wheel
there.
Of cheese.
There you go. I'd like to taste that one. Actually,
I know.
It'd be really cool. But the first one that came about, and it was done pretty for coffee,
right?
In 1995, not that long ago, and they called it the Coffee Tasters Flavor Wheel.
Yeah.
And Ted Lingle and some others were very involved in that. And
Ted.
Yeah, it was
dear Ted.
Yeah, it was good, and you could go onto it, and you could finally have a common language that you could say something, and there it was on the wheel, and someone in Nigeria was like, "Yeah, I've got the same one here."
Right.
But it had some limitations to it.
And for those who don't know what the flavor wheel looks like, both of them are fairly similar in their aesthetic look. But I think of it like the color wheel that you see when you look for paint. There's colors and different things that go. It looks a lot like that, except it has colors, but the colors correlate to flavors and stuff like that. So we'll put a link to where there's an interactive one you can use. But just so you kind of get an idea, think of like a chart with a bunch of different, like a color wheel, but each of those is a flavor.
And I think the wheel, just saying that, you think of a wheel that has spokes going out from the center. That's a coffee wheel, and you start in the middle, and it's very general. And as you move out of the wheel to the tire, to the rubber, whatever you want to put it that way, it gets more and more specific, and you find yourself, you've suddenly mapped your way from the middle, where you're right there, right in the middle, and suddenly you've ended up north,
And
or you've
spokes-
ended up south, and you've got a description.
And spokes on that wheel next to each other are usually somewhat, in the familiar family.
Yeah,
But we'll go into
talk
that.
about that. That's
But
important.
so 1955, Teddy brings us a
what did you say? 1995.
Right, 1995. So I said 50.
I thought you did.
But
Must be
Ted
late.
brings us in 1995, brings us a wheel.
Yes,
It's missing some bits and pieces.
Yeah, and we could go into that, but it was good.
It was good for its time.
Oh, it was. When I started coffee in 2002, that's what I used all the time. That's what we did tests on. That's what we went and got calibrated with.
Wow.
And but then comes along another year called 2016. So that's a little further
That's
on
not too
now.
long ago.
That's not that. That's only 2 years ago
Yeah.
from today, anyway. And
So what happened in 2016?
well, the what it was, the SCAA, which is now the SCA. Don't worry about that.
Specialty Coffee Association.
That's right.
Of America.
It was America's. Now it's joined
Just
up
now
with
it's
Europe.
just specialty-
So it's just
yeah.
Specialty Coffee Association.
Yeah.
This is generalizing it, but with the World Coffee Research got together. There was maybe before that, the Kansas State University got involved, may have been earlier even, and they started having trained sensory panelists, scientists, spend 150 hours just looking at 105 coffee samples as such from 14 different countries, which is a huge task.
That's a lot of coffee.
That's right. And what they found is that they ended up with 99 different terms for coffee, and they said, here we go, and they passed it on to another university in, they call it UC Davis, the University of California in Davis, and they passed it on to them, and then they started doing some amazing statistical work, but also amazing tasting with scientists, with professional tasters, with the coffee industry, all sorts of people who they wanted to find out what was common to coffee, that if you said it, you would always find it in some coffee in the world.
Right. Almost like the ultimate truth with flavor.
That's right. And they call it, I think they call it a living document, because it's going to change. There's going to be new flavors that come out there, and they will probably add a few. They may even take a few away. I don't know. But that you actually get a coffee flavor rather than just coffee tastes like coffee. Now you've got an actual standard, and you say, I taste blackberries. But therein you have a problem.
Because so if we say coffee tastes like blackberries, how do I know that you and I
Are on the same
using
page.
the same definition of blackberries when we say that?
The definition I'm not using, I read this somewhere online, but they're not berries plucked from the Argentine hillside and eaten as an appetizer to a steak dinner paired with a reasonably priced wine. I'm going, whoa, I've never been to Argentina. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right, you have to define it in ways that are achievable for people who are going to be using the wheel. You can't expect everyone to go to Argentina for a steak dinner.
Exactly. So this group from US Davis and many other scientists and others involved in that, I just wrote down here, I'm not going to go into it because they are statistical professionals and all this, and I've been to a few courses on it. Think my mind is just blown by
it's like a brain melt session.
It is. They put so much time into this, and which is wonderful for us at the end who say we can use this knowing quite confidently that this is a good place. The first coffee wheel was good.
Yeah.
This one's now they've taken it to another level and going, wow, this is really usable, which I like about the Coffee Tasters wheel from 2016. It's really usable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, I think it's amazing to me. It's like you could look at it and think, "Oh, this is just a wheel, or this is a whatever," but it really is. There's so much that went into it.
I'm amazed.
Research,
Exactly.
time, and the fact that it's constantly evolving. It's not something that they have decided is static and good as it is. They're always working on. I'm just impressed by. And it's free, right?
It is. You can go online. You can print it off. You can make a poster of it. It's
and again, we'll have a link to it.
Even the lexicon, which is I've got one in front of me. I just put mine in a folder because there's just so many pages.
Yeah,
and we'll go into that in a moment. But it's free. You can just download. There was just an update of it a few months ago.
That is so cool. So yeah, I think the flavor wheel is amazing, and then the lexicon kind of complements the flavor wheel.
Yes.
Because with the flavor wheel, like you said, like you first, like you kind of start in the center, and let's say there's a couple larger categories we pick, and and then it goes out to general or more specific, and then you kind of go from there. Once you get to the end, you kind of say, here's the flavor I've defined, and you can look that up in the lexicon and get more definitions of that.
I don't want to miss this because I was quite excited to add this into the podcast.
Into the show notes for today.
I wanted to say these words because it made me feel quite bright.
Yes, say these words.
And when they did the statistics, I can't even say the word, I'm so excited.
Drum roll.
The statistical analysis, they used words like, well, first I thought this blew my mind, a free multiple sorting system. I thought, whoa, what is that? And I actually didn't. Basically they broke it down to 9 groups.
Yeah,
sweet, floral, fruity, whatever that formed the inner part of the wheel. But it got me really excited when they started using, and they showed us this, and it was just we were looking at different pictures of these over and over, and different ones. The symmetrical proximity similarity matrix blew my mind. They moved on then to the 5-dimensional multi-dimensional scaling, which you and I have a picture of that in front of us there. Just this dots of stuff of all these flavors. They're trying to work out which ones are in coffee and which ones are not. The multiple factor analysis, and then they ended up with the agglomerative hierarchical cluster. Whew.
Sounds like some Star Trek stuff.
It reminded me of that, actually, and that's sort of what they were delving into that had never been delved into before, and that sounds very scientific and it's very factual.
Right.
What I liked about it, where we're heading right now, is how do we practically use that? And I've found that it can be used practically and with quite success, whether you're a professional or just enjoy coffee. You want to know a little bit more about the flavor. What I'm saying, is that accurate?
Yeah. And I mean, I know we've kind of given a brief overview of the wheel itself, and without seeing it, it's really quite difficult to picture in your mind. But again, picturing a wheel of flavors, and essentially it's assisting you in choosing what flavor. We'll kind of go through how we use that. Again, the lexicon is basically a dictionary of those terms. And I may be jumping ahead, but before we jump into, because we're going to walk through using that. Yeah. The cool thing about the lexicon, like you had said about, if I taste a blackberry and you taste a blackberry, how do we know they're the same? Is that the lexicon breaks that down for us. So it says blackberry. And then under that, it says blackberry, here's the flavor, here's the intensity of that flavor.
It gives a definition. And then it goes, the next part.
This is my favorite part.
Oh, you say it then.
Oh, well, so for blackberry, it gives you, what they've picked is like one of the easiest things to get. They typically are at your grocery store, but they say, go get Schmucker's blackberry jam.
Oh, brilliant.
Or for like apple, if you have that in there, it's like a specific type of applesauce.
They've tried. It's hard because we're talking about the Western world here,
right? And that's the thing. You may not be able to get those everywhere.
No. So I don't know if they're going to come out with an edition for Ethiopia or something where it's more available. What they've started with saying, okay, let's start here in particularly the States, and we can go and get some Smucker's blackberry jam.
But it makes it so easy for everybody. Like I know for you've done that for when you've done like teaching people and that kind of stuff. You'll bring in, something and say, hey, let's all taste this and get familiar with this taste because we want to calibrate ourselves to, this is blackberry, this is apple.
You always know when I've done that because suddenly the next day appears in our refrigerator.
A lot of apples.
A lot of Smucker's blackberry jam. Where'd all this come? I did a cupping.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's so cool that it does it. And I think the name is escaping me, but there's also a new thing that's coming out as well that you can actually order the flavors offline. What's that called?
Oh, that's right. It is it's an expensive sort of thing. It's called the Flavor 5 or Flavor Active, I should say.
And we'll put a link to Flavor Active as well, so you can check out their website.
Blows your mind. I've tasted one,
right?
And
but it's like vials of flavor essentially.
Yep.
It's for, I think it was, some of them were different, but for 10 flavors about $95, and each is like a single use flavor thing. So that's expensive, but I think it does start to make it more uniform. There's not like going to the grocery store.
Yeah, if you can't find your Smucker's at your grocery store when you're in Ethiopia, you could have one of these Flavor Active capsules.
That being said, Schmucker's is much cheaper than $95.
That's right. But if you can't get it and you want to know what the taste is.
Yeah. I mean, if you're getting into it, it is helpful. So I think that's cool. And there's also the scents.
The
So they
Nes-
have flavor, and then they have like the scent as well.
Yeah.
And what's that one called?
Is it the Lanez Cafe or something? It's
Yeah, it's like a little box of
35 vials, that like little bottles of different flavors. Now we used to use that with the old Taster's Wheel. We still use it, but now what we've discovered, funny enough, that not all those flavors, those 35, some of them are actually not in the new coffee Taster's Wheel, which is fine. You can smell something that's not there, but and you just broaden your whole category and thinking about smells.
Right. It's pretty cool. I remember you bringing it home, and you can open the one that's the smoke and smell it, or you get the one that's apples or rubber, all these different
that's
things.
not a good one.
No, but there's all these tools, and the lexicon breaks that down as well. So if you have apples, it might give you a number for the actual flavor that you can purchase, or it gives you the applesauce you could buy, and then it also gives you the vial number for the Nescafe.
Yeah, not Nescafe. That's a coffee. That's an instant coffee.
That's right.
You want the Lanez du Cafe.
That one, the Lanez du Cafe. The number for that, so you can smell it.
Number 17's apple.
It starts making.
I learn them all off by heart for my courses.
But it starts making them all very uniform.
Exactly.
It's not perfect by any means, but I think it does kind of start us on that route.
And we've sort of skipped into the lexicon, and the last part we probably should mention why we're talking about the lexicon. We're going to give you an example of one of these.
Right.
Is it not only tells you the Smucker's jam, but it tells you how to prepare it. So you're not just Smucker's jam on some toast, or just a big blob of it in a cup. It says no, we want you in a 1 ounce cup. We want to have a tablespoon or a teaspoon. We want it mixed with water, and that's because I'm getting ahead of myself. Intensity and things like that. Sorry, mate.
But yeah, I mean, so it does really break down how to use the flavor, what flavor to get, and how to define
It's brilliant that way. Very simple.
So let's do this. Let's go through using the Taster's Wheel and the lexicon. Let's do a dry run practice. We'll do a practice.
Okay.
I actually have some coffee here.
Okay. Is it dry or is it?
It's very wet.
Oh, that's real coffee. Nice.
It got cold.
That's all right. Cold's good. You can start getting some of those defects. Can I have a little taste of this?
You can. It's very cold. But yeah, no, it's good though. Is
it Brazil?
I don't know. I have to look at the bag. Probably. So yeah, let's do step one. What is step one? Very first thing. I've got the Taster Wheel.
Yeah,
I've got the lexicon.
In front of me here. Yep.
I've gone through the other podcasts.
And you look at it and you go. The first thing you do, you look and go, "Whoa! This has been done very logically. It's very in sequences. It's colourful. It's got. I'm not sure if it's 99. I think it's got 100.
That's the other thing. The colors on the wheel have been specifically chosen to. What they've found, most people associate that color with that flavor. And that was a lot of words for if it's plum, the color is plum. If it's lemon, it's yellow. Orange is orange.
I hate to tell you this, Reed, but there's no plum in this.
There's no plum.
Sorry, mate.
There was on a different wheel.
There's
some other wheels out there.
And which is a good point. There are many wheels. We've been using Coffee Obsession over there, and it's got its flavor. I like that one. Yeah. It's got a lot more flavors than officially are in coffee, but that's all right. But then you've got many others out there that you can. The taste is something. What is it? Yeah, there's a whole lot of them.
I think professionally, if you're doing it, it's something you are going to want to, your whole company's going to want to use the same wheel.
It's really
if
helpful.
You have multiple locations, that kind of thing. If you're at home, I mean, you could use any wheel. It's all about consistency. Kind of
consistency, exactly. Yep.
But step one.
Okay, yeah, as I say, you're looking at it, really, I mean, it has got all that detail, and then you go, man, this is really beautiful. Someone's put some effort into this, and it looks like you could actually put this on your wall and say, look at that. In fact, we have a couple on our wall at Caravan Coffee, and it looks really nice. You get big, you can blow it up, and you Chris and I were looking at tasting some coffee from Rwanda just yesterday, and I noticed he went straight over to the wheel and said, I think it's got this over here. And then we went back to the middle and we started another flavor and said, I think it's also got this one here. And well, there we suddenly were describing this Rwanda coffee.
But first of all, you just got to take it in.
Yeah.
Take in all the wheel. And I think it's, it's one of those things, it's helpful to study the wheel as well.
That's
to
part
understand
of that,
what's
looking
on
at, read some of these words, and some of them you'll you'll know, blackberry, you'll know that, but then you get down to sour aromatics, what's that taste like, or to isovaleric acid.
And that's where that lexicon comes in, because it breaks that down a little bit.
Exactly.
So I think, number one, take it all in. Take time to appreciate it, to read it, to understand it. And I would say, if you don't do that, it's still so logically laid out, and they've done it in such a smart way that it's actually still usable. And I find it super helpful and easy, even if I don't know what's on there.
Exactly. If you're really starting, I would just stay right in the middle, the first layer in the middle there, and it gives you some big, broad categories. And if that's all you do, great. You've started thinking about your coffee.
Yeah, and that's step number 2.
There you go.
Right, start of step number 2 is taste some coffee.
That's right.
We have to have something to
That's
use.
where the black unflavored stuff comes in.
Yeah, we have to have something that we can try and pull flavors out.
Like
of.
I just tasted yours then. I tasted and I thought, that's interesting. I've got some taste already going in my mind. That's just, and it's not that I'm brilliant. It's more that, brilliant. Oh, well, thank you. But I think it's more, I've just spent some time thinking about it and I've got some experience behind me and I know what some of these flavors now taste like, and I've got so used to them, I can pinpoint it. I can go back to that flavor rather than just saying, oh, the coffee tastes good. And
I think we don't have to go into it in this episode because we kind of covered it in the last one, but there's a process of appreciating and noticing the flavor, the fragrance, the aromas, all those different parts. And we're going to go in another episode deeper into kind of some of those aspects as far as like body and all those different
body
things.
Acidity, which is a very hard one how do you explain that?
But that process we talked about in our earlier episode about just the progress of how the physical process goes through smelling the ground coffee.
And that's right. And you have your coffee, you do it ground first, so you just get the fragrance of it, then do it with water in it, and you taste that again.
Absolutely.
Once you've got that all going on in your mind, that's where all through that process, when it's dry, when it's wet, you can now go to the taster's wheel.
Right. So step number 3.
Right. So you've got these thoughts going through your mind, and you taste your coffee again, you slurp it again, you smell it, whatever you're doing with it, and you say, I taste there's something fruity in here. It's not roasty, it's not spicy, but it's fruity.
And I sometimes find that I'm missing for words. Like I don't know, like I taste it and I know that there's flavors there, but I don't know what words to say. So the easiest thing is to, I'm just holding the wheel here, is to put my finger right in the middle of it. Oh, you've got another wheel.
Oh, that's another wheel.
But is to put your finger in the middle. And so let's go down one path.
Right. This is where it's probably good. You can do it by yourself, but you have some others.
Right.
They can sometimes fill in those gaps that you can't put a word to. And they say, not that you want them to lead you on to a path that's wrong.
Right. But some people may be able to define it or to pinpoint a word that either is the word you're looking for or helps you get to
that's
what
right.
You're looking for.
You know, it's a known fact out there that some, like 25%, is going to get broad numbers out here, but like
just say this is a fact.
25% of people don't taste very well, if at all.
You can take that to the bank.
Yeah, you go. You can do tests. I've got this test where you put this paper on your tongue, and we can find out if you're just a taster or a non-taster. But then you've got this huge middle part.
Right.
Obviously, we look at tasting this wheel and having other people involved who are called tasters, and you can taste and describe things 26% of the time.
Yeah.
But by just doing what we're talking about now over and over and over again, you can move yourself right up to 74%.
Wow. And I think that's, everybody's got a different palate tasting.
Exactly. There is, but I should say, the last 25%, they call them the super tasters.
Are you a super taster?
I believe I could be, but it's a danger in that. I'm not. I don't.
Do you wear a cape sometimes?
Yeah, I fly. But the problem with being a super taster is you taste defects a lot as well. So it's not just you can taste fruity.
It's a gift and a curse.
A gift and a curse. I think I'm just a good taster because I've experienced it so long.
So we've tasted our coffee. I'll take a sip of mine here.
Yes. And you start at the middle of the coffee, and I said, do you get a fruity note there? Let's just go through this one we've got here, perhaps, whether that's fruity or not. I think it is actually, but it's got a little chocolate note too, by the way.
So we taste something in it. We look at the wheel. We're starting in the center of that wheel. And there's a fruitiness we notice in our coffee. So we say, okay, well, we've got some fruitiness in that coffee. So we follow the path of fruitiness. We take that one more step out.
If you want to, you can stop there and just enjoy your coffee from there.
Or we say, you know what, we want to break that down a little further. So what's the next step we take that to?
And as you go out to the next level on the wheel, as you're getting towards that rubber on the outside, not the rubber note, but just the rubber of the tire.
If it was a wheel.
Yeah, that's right. It gets broken down. So fruity is a huge term. What sort of fruits just generally are out there? And I'm looking at the wheel now, and I'm going to say, okay, you can have a berry fruit.
Berries, yeah.
Dried
it categorizes the different fruits.
Citrus fruit. And I love this one, other fruit. Sort of like, okay, that doesn't tell me much.
Dragon fruit.
If it's not berry,
fruit.
if it's not dried fruit, it's not citrus, we're going to have to go to the other fruit side of it.
Gotcha. So let's say it's a citrus fruit.
Okay, yeah. So you got the fruity,
so
and now you're
wheel's
being really
already-
nerdy and calling it citrus now.
Well, and it's like the wheels already helped us to kind of define that a little bit. So we're at citrus. We can actually say, is there a breakdown for that even? And sure enough,
There is.
bada bing, bada boom, there is. So we can sharpen our description of that down even further, so that then it goes into grapefruit, orange, lemon, or lime, and we can say, this has a lemon flavor to it.
And now you're right on the outside and you're getting very specific now, which is wonderful. And it doesn't actually do this here, but sometimes you can talk about lemon, a Myers lemon. Is it a sweet lemon? Is it a sour lemon? You can actually bring some other things, even though it just says lemon in here. By going over, and I look at the lexicon for, it says all these words. And for instance, if I went to fruit, it would give me saying, well, when I say just generally fruit, it tastes fruity. What's that taste like? And I look at my lexicon, it's got a sweet, floral, aromatic blend of variety of ripe fruits. And I'm thinking, I don't really know. I don't know what that means. But if you go and buy some juicy juice, 100% juice kiwi strawberry, and tells you how to mix it up and taste that and smell it, that's what they mean when they say fruity.
Yeah.
Or you can go to, like you were talking about before, the Linnaeus du Cafe and pick out the apple one, vial number 17. Smell that, don't drink that. Smell that, and that's the fruity note.
Yeah.
But you've talked about citrus. So now, okay, it's fruity. What was a berry? No, I think it's more citrus. So now you go to the citrus page and you first look at what's citrus taste like compared to berry.
It's just crazy how much you can, at each step you can define it.
I love the description of citrus.
What does it show for citrus?
Blows me. It says a citric, which is a citrus, sour, astringent, slightly sweet, peely, and somewhat floral aromatic that may include lemons, limes, grapefruits, or oranges.
Ooh.
So it's pretty general, but it's got some things
it helps
specific to citrus.
Yeah, it helps you to start specifying it. And I would also say this, each coffee is not going to have necessarily one strain or one route through the flavor wheel. You may have a coffee that tastes chocolatey and raspberry and, any number of things. So sometimes what you can do is you can do that, go through that whole process, taste it again, go through the process again, and follow a different path.
That's right. And that's why the nice thing we have other people with you could say, well, I sort of get where you're going with the lemon and the citrus and the fruity, but, I also notice there is some other, not citrus, but there's another fruit, or they may say something quite, chemical note there. There could be all sorts of things that they
or
could come
in
up
an
with.
early episode, you had said that cupping with someone, they said it tasted pillowy.
Pillowy, that's
and
right.
It's like, how do we define that? So if someone has the wheel, they can say, well, when I say pillowy, I mean floral or aromatic or those kind of things. And it can help them to hone that in so that then they say, well, actually what I meant was it tastes like a flower. And you go, oh, you know what? I've tasted that in what the lexicon says, and I know what you mean.
Pillowy, by the way, I found is not in the coffee taster's wheel, so I'm still left thinking, what does pillowy mean?
We'll have to figure that out.
I go to sleep and I smell my pillow, but then there's different pillow. I don't know what he meant.
Well, yeah, who knows?
I'll ask him.
And I think I skipped about 4.
Oh, don't worry about it.
7 steps here, but
we did know we got them.
But that was read the lexicon.
Yep.
And then you can also check out the references. It has those references, those flavor references, those kind of things. And you know what's something I just thought about right now? You could read through the lexicon. And you could find flavors that you like, and then go look for coffees that say they have that flavor.
And
then you could taste the coffee against that flavor.
The only thing with that, you may discover by drinking the coffee and letting going that way, you may discover some flavors I didn't even know I liked that.
That's true.
That's new.
That's true.
It's new for me, rather than just going for the same old things, which you're obviously going to like as well.
And I think this is maybe a little challenging to describe verbally, but we'll give it a shot. We'll put some pictures and links and all that jazz.
Yes.
But on the taster's wheel, at the very edge, all the lemon, the lime, the orange, all the flavors that are next to each other are somewhat similar.
Correct.
But the spaces between those little slivers or spokes, we'll call them.
Spokes, yeah, I like that.
Are different. So if they are larger in distance, it means those two are less alike than ones that may be closer.
Yep.
So even as you're around the outside of the wheel, there's some really big chunks missing, and that means essentially, these are not
They're
close.
miles apart.
But if there's a larger or medium gap and then a super small gap, the one that's medium is close, but it's not extremely close.
Exactly. I mean, I look on here, grapefruit and orange are really close to each other, and that's sort of obvious to us.
Right.
But when you skip over from, let me see here, grapefruit to pear, there's a big gap in saying actually grapefruit and pear, now you're into a different category, and they're far apart when it comes to tasting coffee.
Right, and orange and lemon are close to each other, but they have a little gap. So they're in the same citrus family, but
lemon and
different.
lime are close together. Now we're picking really easy ones, but if you look at some of these other ones, I mean, you're looking at what do you look? Pea pod, fresh, dark green, vegetative, hay-like, or herb-like. It's like whoa.
There's really so much in it.
Yep.
And there's so many ways the wheel can be used. So one question I had for you, though.
Oh, yes. I have an answer.
This is a burning question.
Yeah.
Do you feel like with the wheel, because you're using the wheel, do you feel like you're limiting things because you're like, I'm using what they've already given me. I'm not using my brain. Do you ever feel like, I'm not using my mind. I'm actually just picking flavors because I think it and I see it and it makes me feel like I can actually taste it, but I'm not. I'm not
being creative in my own words. Yeah.
Or do you feel like it's not limiting?
I probably generally think it's not limiting because there's so many flavors, there's so many to learn that you need to keep going back and recalibrating.
Yeah.
In doing all that, you learn a lot. And you, as I say, half of them I probably never tasted before, but because it tells me to go and get something, I go to the grocery, I get it, I come home. Some of them I have to go on the internet to get some of the chemicals because they don't have them at the grocery. I understand and know why. But now I've actually grown in my understanding of different flavors and the sweet, the sour, the astringent. I think what's the difference between those?
Yeah.
So it's actually helped me, and I found if this is a good base to get on the same page, and particularly as we're talking to other people in other countries, it's really helpful in describing things. And but at that point, when you get to the lemony, as I was saying, you could diverge from there a little bit,
right,
and find out actually what's a Myers lemon.
Yeah. And I think that's right. I think that the other side of that coin is that, I know that I don't know all the flavors on this wheel.
No.
And so by learning this wheel, by going through this wheel, I'm actually going to be expanding instead of limiting in a lot of ways.
You do. It sort of seems sort of counterintuitive, but
and it's not
just this wheel, there's more. And I say
right.
It's a living document. There's going to be more, I'm sure. But this, if you can get the handle on these 100 flavors,
right,
you have done well.
And I think that at the end of the day, it is making it easier for us to work with each other, work together to understand each other, understand what we're doing, and it's not the end all be all. Like you said, you can define lemon. You might have a childhood memory of lemons that you can describe and explain. It's not limiting from that.
It helps you take that real memory and describe it. Actually, I guess you're moving from a subjective to the opposite. Objective. Thank you. And it just helps move that way so that we can help other people understand. Because if someone said to me, this tastes like Grandpa's back leather seat of his cars, I never was in Grandpa's back leather seated car.
Right.
So that's not very helpful to me. But if you say something on here, that is helpful because that brings us together. And then we can say, and that smell of lemons, that smells like my grandfather's back leather seat. I'm saying, really, I would have thought it was something to do with leather. Right. No, because there was lemons in the back seat. And I just remember that. Yeah.
And I think that is a good point. It can help us to define even our own flavors that we have or remember. But yeah, I mean, that's the lexicon. That's, it's not everything in there, but it's a good look at the lexicon. And again, there's an awesome link that we'll put in the description that has a really cool interactive wheel. You can actually click on the different segments and it gives you definitions.
That was fun. I enjoyed that. Yeah.
So good. And if you can, do your cupping with your laptop or something and do that.
Yeah.
And do it. And that's a really easy way. It's almost like a merging of the lexicon and the wheel at the same
technology.
Time. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I mean, by the way, the wheel, we probably should finish here shortly, but the wheel and the lexicon, it's not just necessary flavors as we think in the terms of flavor. I look at one chapter here called mouth feel.
Yeah.
Mouth drying, thickness, metallic, oily. So it helps you understand words that we're going to use in future podcasts when we talk about a body of a coffee. How do you describe that?
Yeah. I mean, my sales pitch for it is a free way to better better understand what flavors you're tasting and sharing them with other people.
Wonderful.
It's
Wonderful.
free. So we'll put a link to the lexicon. We'll put a link to the wheel. You can always Google it as well. Again, thank you so much for listening. We so greatly appreciate you spending time with us and making it all the way. You're here. You're at the end.
Wonderful.
And then, so we're going to do another, we're not really sure how many more episodes. It could go on forever, I guess, but we're going to do on cupping, that is.
I would, as long as if all these last few lessons we've had or podcasts on cupping, taste some coffee and think about some coffee. You do that, I'm happy.
That's kind of the slogan almost for the series, is taste and think.
Yep, I like that.
But we're gonna go into some more in-depth looks at cupping and kind of walk through that together. But thank you so much for tuning in. We look forward to hearing from you next week, or I guess you'll hear from us.
Yeah, they can talk to us as well.
That's right. Reach out to us.